April 30th, 1975. After 30 years of brutal warfare, the Vietnam War was over. But the man whose vision had fueled this struggle was not there to see it. He had died years earlier. This was his victory, the culmination of a life's journey that took him from the kitchens of Paris to the halls of the Kremlin, all to achieve one single, unwavering goal: a free and united Vietnam. In the late 19th century, the nation of Vietnam was erased from the map. It became French Indochina, a colony to be exploited. The French built grand colonial cities, but their wealth was built on the backs of the Vietnamese people. They seized land for plantations, imposed heavy taxes, and brutally suppressed any form of dissent. For the Vietnamese people, colonialism was a daily humiliation, a theft of both their resources and their dignity. Born into this subjugated world was a young man named Nguyen Tat Thanh. Unlike other nationalists who stayed home, he believed he had to understand the world to change it. At 21, he signed on as a ship's cook and began a 30-year journey across the globe. He saw the poverty of colonized people in Africa and Asia, and the power of the empires in London, Paris, and New York. He was not just a laborer, he was a student, absorbing every political idea he could find, searching for the key to his nation's freedom. His first great hope came after World War I, inspired by American President Woodrow Wilson's promise of self-determination for all nations. Ho Chi Minh drafted an 8-point petition for Vietnamese independence and traveled to the Versailles Peace Conference to present it. He was ignored. The great Western powers had no intention of freeing their colonies. For Ho, this was a profound betrayal. He realized that freedom would not be given by the West. It would have to be taken. Disillusioned with Western democracy, he found his answer in a new, radical ideology: communism. He saw in Lenin's anti-imperialist writings a blueprint for liberation. He traveled to Moscow, where he was trained by the Comintern as a professional revolutionary. He learned the arts of espionage, propaganda, and organization. The wanderer Nguyen Tat Thanh was gone. In his place was a hardened, dedicated agent of global revolution, now known as Ho Chi Minh. After 30 years abroad, as World War II raged and Japan occupied Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh secretly returned to his homeland. In a remote cave in the northern mountains, he founded the League for the Independence of Vietnam, the Viet Minh. His goal was simple: to unite all Vietnamese, regardless of politics, to fight the Japanese and their French collaborators. The dragon had come home. When Japan surrendered in 1945, the Viet Minh seized their moment. They took control of Hanoi, and in front of 500,000 people, Ho Chi Minh declared the birth of an independent Vietnam. In a direct appeal to the United States, he began his speech with a familiar phrase: "All men are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights." ... He was quoting Thomas Jefferson, hoping the Americans would recognize his nation's fight for freedom. It was a hope that would soon be betrayed. But the French had no intention of giving up their prized colony. Backed by the British, they returned to reassert control. The dream of a peaceful independence was shattered. In late 1946, the First Indochina War began. Ho Chi Minh and his Viet Minh were forced out of the cities and back into the jungles, beginning an 8-year guerrilla war against a modern European army. The war culminated in 1954 at Dien Bien Phu. The French built an impregnable fortress deep in the mountains, hoping to lure the Viet Minh into a final, decisive battle. They believed it was impossible to get heavy artillery through the dense jungle. They were wrong. Under General Vo Nguyen Tat, the Vietnamese did the impossible. They disassembled massive cannons, hauled them up the mountains piece by piece, and reassembled them in concealed positions overlooking the French. They had turned the trap back on its makers. The French were bombarded into submission. The victory at Dien Bien Phu shocked the world and ended French colonial rule in Indochina forever. But at the Geneva Peace Conference, the great powers intervened. Vietnam was temporarily divided into a communist north, led by Ho Chi Minh, and an anti-communist south, soon to be backed by the United States. The promised nationwide election to unify the country never happened. One war had ended only for another, even larger one, to begin. As leader of North Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh cultivated the image of Bac Ho, Uncle Ho. He was portrayed as a simple man of the people, a celibate father to the entire nation. While this was a carefully crafted cult of personality, it was incredibly effective. He embodied the soul of the resistance. His government, though authoritarian and repressive, organized the nation for total war, creating the legendary Ho Chi Minh Trail to supply the fight against the Americans and their South Vietnamese allies. The conflict escalated. Fearing the domino effect of communism spreading through Southeast Asia, the United States committed its full military might. The American War, as the Vietnamese call it, was a brutal clash of ideologies and technologies. America had overwhelming air power and firepower, but the North Vietnamese and their Viet Cong allies had an unbreakable will, knowledge of the terrain, and the unwavering leadership of Ho Chi Minh, who vowed to fight for 10, 20, even 100 years if necessary. Ho Chi Minh's greatest weapon was not a tank or a plane, but an idea. He successfully framed the war not as a battle for communism, but as the final, heroic chapter in a 1,000-year struggle for Vietnamese independence. His famous proclamation, "Nothing is more precious than independence and freedom," became the rallying cry for the entire nation. It was this spirit that the Americans could never defeat. But the man himself would not live to see his dream realized. On September 2nd, 1969, on the very anniversary of his Declaration of Independence, Ho Chi Minh died. His final wish was to be cremated, his ashes scattered across the 3 regions of a unified Vietnam. Instead, his successors, needing the power of his myth, had his body embalmed and placed in a grand mausoleum. Even in death, Uncle Ho would continue to serve the revolution. The war continued without him, but his spirit drove it forward. In 1975, the North Vietnamese launched their final offensive. The South Vietnamese army collapsed. On April 30th, the tanks rolled into Saigon and the war was over. In his honor, the city was renamed Ho Chi Minh City. The nation was finally, after centuries of division and foreign domination, united and free. Today, Ho Chi Minh's legacy is as complex as his life. To the Vietnamese people, he is the nation's founding father, the ultimate patriot who sacrificed everything for his country. To many in the West, he remains a ruthless communist dictator, responsible for a totalitarian regime. Perhaps the truth is that he was both a nationalist who used the tools of communism to achieve his life's singular goal. He was a wanderer who became a king, a poet who became a general, and a man who became an immortal symbol for his people.